We're in Daniel 2 today, and we're going to start reading in verse 41, where Daniel's just wrapping up his explanation of Nebuchadnezzar's prophetic dream. Here's what he says. Whereas you saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. Yet the strength of the iron shall be in it, just as you saw the iron mixed with ceramic clay. And as the toes of the feet were partly of iron and partly of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly fragile. As you saw iron mixed with ceramic clay, they will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not adhere to one another, just as iron does not mix with clay. In the vision of the statue, each of the successive metals represented a single political power. The gold represented the Babylonian Empire under Nebuchadnezzar. The silver represented the Persians. The brass represented the Greeks, and the iron represented the Romans. But now the vision changes, and Daniel focuses on the toes, and he tells us the empire is divided. There is no world empire to follow the Romans. It simply breaks apart into a number of pieces. In fact, it breaks apart into 10 pieces, just like the 10 toes you have on your feet. And those 10 principal pieces, which really were the key barbarian tribes of Western Europe, well, they eventually evolved into the nations of Western Europe that we know today. So that makes an ancient prophecy very much relevant to today's world. With some notable exceptions, the kingdoms predicted in the toes of the statue are still here today. The Franks became the French, for example, and the Lombards became the modern-day Italians. And that's where it gets really interesting. If you read this prophecy carefully, you'll notice that Daniel predicts that these pieces of the Western Roman Empire, the nations of modern Europe, he says they'd try to stitch themselves back together into an empire, but they'd fail. Now, go grab your history book from high school, and you'll notice something astounding. It happened exactly the way Daniel predicted. Over and over again, there were dramatic attempts to piece the empire back together, and they all failed. The heads of state tried to do it by marrying their children to each other and trying to forge alliances. Charlemagne tried it using armies. Louis XIV tried it. Napoleon tried it. Kaiser Wilhelm tried it. And Hitler tried it. And everybody failed. Why? Because they weren't smart enough or strong enough? On the contrary, if you study history carefully, you'll see that Napoleon or Hitler could have won. But the prophecy says they will not adhere to one another. And for 2,500 years, the Bible has been exactly right. There has never been a political reunification of the Western Roman Empire. Economic agreements, yeah. Looser borders, yeah. But a complete reintegration? No way. So think about this. When God makes up His mind about something, He sticks with His decision. He said Rome would never pull itself back together, and it didn't. And when God says His love for you is unquestionable, He means that too. When He says He's willing to forgive and start over with you, He means it. When He says that you can start over and that the kingdom of heaven can belong to you, well, God's word is solid. He's not going to change His mind about how He feels about you. And of course that means it's well worth your time to explore whatever else God has promised, because you just know it's going to prove to be a better way to live.